it's April 9th. So as of April 9th, 2020, what sorts of projects are you looking for? What are you hoping shows up in your inbox?
Oh, that's a great question. I think right now I'm pretty open to anything. What I keep saying is I just need an escape. I think we all need that right now. Just like that wonderful read that just kind of pulls you in and you're just there. You're in that different world. It doesn't let go. It's a great voice. And so that can be anything. I represent middle grade, YA, and adult. So right now, anything. Give me that read. I'm reading submissions. And for me, work is a great escape and submissions are a great escape. So I'm just looking for that good story.
So you find yourself reading even more now that we're avoiding the news and all sorts of unpleasant thoughts that might come while we're in quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, for me, reading's, I think that's probably one of the reasons I've always liked books. I think reading is such a great escape. You just really get sucked into that world. So yeah, I'm definitely reading submissions, reading regular books as much as I possibly can with the new situation. It's definitely, some of my submission reading time has been interrupted with the new flow of things, but still doing a lot of reading.
See, I had read something in your request that I wanted to make sure I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I ask you about it. So I know that you're a big fan of fantasy type stories. I'm assuming that's still true.
Yeah.
And you had said that it was, what was it, atmospheric fantasy specific that you're looking for? Is that the atmospheric setting? A fantasy with a wonderful atmospheric setting. And I thought, okay, what is an atmospheric setting? How am I gonna turn your head with this?
For me, so this is probably subjective. So this is my definition, and so people may debate it, but I'm just looking for the atmosphere to really be part of the character. Like it's just this pervasive, almost it sets the tone of the story. The atmosphere is so rich. And specifically for me, my favorite books are kind of like sweater weather reads. Like I picture myself on like a coast, in a cable knit sweater and tea, and that's kind of the feel of the story. One of my favorite books, Songs from the Deep, which is Kelly Powell, which is one of my clients, and her story came from that, and it's set on a fictional island called Twillingale, and it kind of has that kind of Irish coast feeling. And as soon as I got that submission, I was like, I'm sold. Like I can't get enough of that kind of setting. So for me, that's always something I'm looking for.
So Irish coast, huge plus. If you've got it
doesn't have to be Ireland, but that kind of, that kind of misty, miserable, it kind of has this anything can happen kind of atmosphere. It's just kind of dreary. I love it. I live for it. Maybe because I'm from Cleveland, which is like kind of a cold, dreary place in itself. That's my comfort zone. That's my happy place. So I like stories that kind of take me there.
And if you've got a fantasy set in Cleveland, well, for sure.
Who wouldn't want to escape to Cleveland, right? Or vacation. I'm sure everyone's hoping to go there when the pandemic is over.
And then, well, I'm always curious with setting. I guess it's one of those things that's going to depend on what the type of story is, but how much time being spent on setting is too much time?
It's really going to depend on the story. If it's a fantasy, world building is going to be really key. If it's, a rom-com, you can kind of maybe set the mood and people know. So I think there's no right answer for how much time needs to be spent on the setting, but it needs to be enough that the reader can picture themselves there easily within the pages.
No, I want you to tell me the exact number of sentences to write, and that's what I'm doing from now on.
I'm going to need 2 solid paragraphs. No.
Perfect. And then, what is it that attracts you to fantasy and magical realism?
I think it's just the escape. That's kind of fun. So much, especially now when you're going about in day to day, is very stressful, and sometimes there aren't easy solutions. To have these kind of fun, magical solutions or magical problems can be kind of refreshing. I just love it. It transports you. And I'm someone who grew up, I think I was 10 when the first Harry Potter came out, and he was 10. And, that was a book that is, for so many people, played such an important part of their childhood. But I would, each year get older, and so would Harry. And that kind of maybe first made me really love magic and that escape.
And did you read the first book when it came out?
I did, and not right away. I think it was like maybe like a few months later. Like it had already become a thing before I picked up a copy. But yes, I did. I loved it.
I remember when I read it, I was in college, and the fourth book had just come out because I was waiting tables away from classes, and I had 4 kids come in, and they all had Goblet of Fire, and they all sat there reading it while their parent just ate and talked to me because the kids weren't talking. What is this book? I have to read it immediately. And then I went home and ate my heart out because, oh my God, why am I trying to be a writer when this exists? And then something else she said, this is another impossible question. I specialize in
no.
But you say that you're looking for voice-driven stories, and I'm always looking for that vague, nebulous definition of author voice. What advice do you have for authors that are looking to cultivate the sort of voice that will drive a story?
Oh, that is that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Because if there was just one way to do it, my job would be so much easier. I would just tell everyone the secret and then sign everyone, and my job would be done. But I think really to get that voice, it's tough to capture on page, but I think it's also really just knowing your character so well that really the devil's in the detail, and how a character describe things and see things and perceive things, little slights. You just know your character so well that you're always in his world or his eyes or her eyes, and it just informs every decision. And I think when authors are really able to do that, it makes the character come more alive on the page. And it's hard to do, but I think it really starts with knowing your character and really spending that time to build this character out in your mind.
Makes sense to me. When you work with your clients or whatever writers you happen to be working with, do you recommend some specific things that they can do to strengthen their characters and strengthen their voice?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends. Each client and each manuscript is different, but I do always recommend, knowing your character and spending enough time to see how they would handle each situation. Even secondary characters, I think that's where voice really matters. Is I think a lot of people can develop their main character, but where the story starts to fall flat is these secondary characters are just caricatures. And so really making sure that no matter how minor the role someone might play, they need to be fully fleshed out.
Gotcha. So the example I always use when I teach in class of the ideal secondary character is Detective Kinderman in The Exorcist, because a fun fact that I'm a nerd, so I know William Peter Blatty sold The Exorcist as a film before he sold it as a book. And the film ended up being delayed, but they liked the Detective Kinderman so much they spun him off into his own television show, which became Columbo. So I always say, write a secondary character so great that it could sustain multiple seasons of television on their own.
Exactly.
And then let's who are some of the clients that you've worked with so far?
Yeah, well, L'Oreal Ryan, who is fantastic. We were talking earlier, but she has her book that just came out this Tuesday, Into the Tall, Tall Grass. It's a magical realism, middle grade story. And it's just, it's fantastic. That is a story that its initial pages just blew me away. You're seeing the main character, Yolanda, walks in, and her grandmother is sick, and she has these beautiful butterflies just nesting in her hair. And it's just such a rich image, and it raises so many questions in my head, and she's just really a fabulous author. I also work with Kelly Powell, who we talked about, who Songs from the Deep, and she has her next book coming out with Simon & Schuster in 2020. And she's just gorgeous writing, atmospheric setting. I also work with Lizelle Samberry, who her debut fantasy, a Black Witches story set in a futuristic Toronto. So it's very fun. Very, very interesting. It's coming out with Simon & Schuster as well, and that's coming out in 2021. But again, very different voices, but all really strong, unique voices, and pretty much that's what really captured me for each of those authors.